Let's talk about communication in a relationship. Double click on effective communication, especially its positive impact on the well being of the relationship. And voila, you are winning. You are winning, for there is understanding, agreement, cohesion, synergy, and unity, all of which are the fruits of hard work and determination. That's right, you heard me right. Relationships require you to work for them to work. And I'm going to say that again. Relationships require you to work for them to work. Good people, welcome to Love on a Podcast. I hope you are well and winning. This is a platform where we talk about anything and everything to do with love. And today we are talking about love as a language. We're talking about the language of love, or the language that is love. All right, so imagine that, right? Actually, that's a bit of a side note. Imagine love being a language. Like if you speak love, if you sing love, if you communicate love, if you live out love, that would actually be amazing. That would actually be quite lovely. But let me not get distracted, as I always try to fight. We are, in fact, talking about love languages, right? Or at least, if you try to understand it another way, types of love in another sense. And so that is how you either express love or how you experience love. So if it's how you give love, how you love someone, how you love on someone, or how you receive love. So yeah, that's what we're talking about today, and I hope that we can learn about how to do it better, how to do it more effectively, whether you're giving love, whether you're receiving love, whether you are expressing affection or whether you are experiencing it. Right? And so effective communication leads to fulfillment, especially if the messaging and the heart behind it is loving, authentic, genuine, and honest. If it is clear, concise, concrete, correct, coherent, right? It's got to make sense. Make it make sense. I mean, sometimes it doesn't, but I think that's when it is like on some divinity tip, right? Because sometimes I don't think we understand the way that God loves us, the way Jesus loves us. But again, I might go down another rabbit hole there. But I think there is, to some degree, reasoning and a connection that you can make to the coherence of love, or loving in a coherent manner, where there's a logical or pragmatic sequence to it. Where, I mean, you get people asking, why do you love me? Because they're trying to make sense of the reasoning. They're trying to make sense of the sequence of when did you start loving me, or what inspired you to love me. But again, that's another chat. So, but like, yeah, behold, behold what it takes, or what takes place, right, when people do not understand each other, when there is a misunderstanding. There is bound to be confusion, there is bound to be disagreement, disappointment, misalignment, and more outcomes that could be grossly undesirable. It's just a mess when people do not understand each other. I mean, take it to your daily living, very practically. If you are primarily a Shona speaking person or a Zulu speaking person, and then you do not understand French or Spanish or Swahili, right? And someone speaks to you in that language, you will not understand them and you'll be confused. And in any case, from a place of confusion, there may be disagreement, disappointment, because you want to understand but you don't. But if you're speaking different languages, it's just a mess. And so I must say, okay, I think must is a strong word, but I'd like to express that one of my biggest desires, or at least something that I really treasure, is being understood. Therefore, you can imagine how misunderstandings affect me. But again, that is another side note, right? And so if you want there to be understanding, you got to be speaking the same language. If you want there to be understanding in your relationship regarding love, you got to be speaking the same language that is love, the same language of love, right? So my hope is that you are actively and intentionally striving to communicate more effectively in your relationships. More so when it comes to um, communicating your expectations, your intentions, your goals, your visions, your boundaries, right? We mustn't forget boundaries. But that too is a side note, right? So back to love languages. I really think it's integral, right, to know and understand what they are, these love languages, how they can be useful in helping us establish the best ways to love each other, as well as receive love from one another. So, what are these love languages, right? Some of you may ask if you are not aware at all. And this may prove to be a great reminder for those that have heard of love languages and do know them. Right? Yeah. So it's either a reminder or I'm informing you. Thanks to Dr. Gary Chapman, I finally got the name right. One of the episodes prior, I had forgotten his name, but I figured it out. Thanks to Dr. Gary Chapman, we have a guideline, right, on what expressing and experiencing affection could look like. The key word there was could look like, right? It's not a law, it's not the commandments of love, it's not the be all and end all of love, but it's definitely a guideline. From a book first published in 1992. How old were you in 1992? If I can just ask. Asking for a friend. Right? This book was published in 1992, and we now have valuable insight, right, on 5 general ways that love manifests in relationships between people. They are as follows: acts of service, gift giving, or gift receiving if you want, gift reception, whatever, physical touch, quality time, and words of affirmation. So you feel loved if someone helps you, supports you, is there for you. You feel loved if someone gives you gifts, or you give gifts unto another person. It registers to you that you are loving them. Physical touch, right? Sometimes physical touch is actually quite interesting. As I was reading about and researching on this, that you don't have to be touchy-feely. Sometimes it's just a hug, sometimes a high five, sometimes it's just someone holding your shoulder, someone just being around you, right? Quality time, spending time with people. You feel like you are loved when you can just spend time with people you love, or people you love spending time with you. You feel very, very loved. And words of affirmation, so encouragement, someone supporting you and affirming you and encouraging you, all of that stuff. It's part of words of affirmation. Go read it, do your own research. It's quite a lot of text just to understand it. I mean, you can do a test. I'll put the links below in the descriptions, where you can do a test to figure out what your love languages are, right? Yeah, and then you can be able to, from a place of awareness and being informed, you can act better and decide what to do better in your relationships. I want to add a sixth one. I hope that I'll be able to talk to this man one day and inspire him to add a sixth love language. That is food. Food. Guys, that's the love language that needs to be a bonus in this whole thing. There are in fact not only 5 but 6 love languages. Food is one of them, right? I mean it. I'm saying this with my chest. It's food is key, guys. Yo, I mean, ukabikirwa nemunhu, guys, unonzwa kufara, unonzwa kudiwa, pamwe pacho unonzwa kudisiswa. If I had to go to my mother tongue to express that, right? You really feel loved when someone cooks for you, right? I think when I cook, I really put some TLC into it, some tender love and care into it, right? And if I'm cooking for someone, it comes from a place of love. All right, just at least it's got to be someone special, I think. I mean, if I'm cooking for my people that have visited me and I've cooked for them, yeah, it comes from a place of love. But just before you overthink this whole thing, right? Examining every instance that you've cooked for someone, right? Now you're thinking, did I love that person? No, wait. I'm speaking generally. I think it stands generally. The whole thing of food, guys, food. Even just think of like when they call it soul food. right? But we're not going to talk about food tonight or this morning, whenever you're listening to this, right? But generally speaking, food, and I'm sure you will agree with me, food needs to be added to this list, right? Unless also it becomes a chore. Well, I don't know. I think it's a bit different when it's now a chore or when it's now a duty. I don't know if love still is still a part of the equation when it's a duty and now you have to cook and it becomes a mess. But I think when you do want to and you're really present and you really want to do it, food can really be about love. I'm just saying. But that's a conversation for another day. With all that said, right, we've just gone through the biggest L on this podcast, right? I've said a lot that we can actually learn from regarding love languages. We've learned what they are, we've learned what they're about, and we've learned to add food to that list, right? Yo, there's so much to learn. I mean, I know that I've had to learn to see beyond myself as I relate to someone that, yeah, it's not always about what I believe to be fitting in communicating love and expressing love. I've had to learn what others think of love and how they receive love and how they respond to love. So, yeah, know what they are, understand what they are, and let them inform your decisions as you express love or experience love. Before we proceed, before we proceed to the O, the V, and the E in the love on a podcast, I'd like to pick your mind, right, on what you think Jesus' primary love languages were, or what his primary love language is, right? Think of what you can learn from his experiences, his expressions of affection to people that he were immediately around him, people that he traveled with, his disciples, people that he ministered to, as he lived out his being, because Jesus is love. What do you think the primary love language was? Form of expression? Was it acts of service? Was it gift giving? Was it physical touch? Was it quality time? Was it words of affirmation? I think it's something that you can learn a lot from Christ, right? Since we're still on the L, you can learn a lot from Christ and how he expressed affection as well as how he experienced it. Because also, I know for a lot of people it's important to hear the words, I love you. But we don't read those three words in the Bible at all, if I'm not mistaken. Yet it's so important to us today. Like, is it something that's just been conditioned socially or what? Again, I'm going another rabbit hole here. But just think about it, and I hope that you can draw something from it. Because I think acts of service was Jesus' primary language. Like, he lived love. He showed it. He expressed it through action. And I think also he also experienced affection through action. Like the woman who washed his feet. She didn't tell him, Lord, I love you, but she expressed it. I don't know. I think it's something to think about, right? And so that leads us to the opportunity. The opportunity to express or experience love better arises when there is intentionality and willingness to do so. Ask, reflect, think, rethink. Take time to learn and unlearn, right? You will discover a lot about yourself and the person that you are in relationship with regarding love languages. Inquire if you're not sure. Seek clarity if you do not understand. Take the quotes, take the following quotes as examples, right? I wonder why she didn't really like the flowers that I got her. It seems like he didn't appreciate the way that I touched his shoulder earlier today. Did I say something wrong? I wish we could spend more time together. I just can't do this on my own. I need help. His help. All right. These are examples, quotes I've given you as people think upon deficiencies, if I can put it that, or this void that they feel when they think about their love languages, right? Or what they hope to experience regarding love. When someone's saying, I wonder why they don't like the gift that I got them. Or when someone's saying, yo, I need support. I feel like I'll feel loved by my partner if he's more supportive, if he's more present. Or when you miss someone, when you're longing for someone's presence and affection, or when you want to hear something, or you're worried about what you said, all of those things contribute to the facets of love languages. Think about it. The moment that you are willing, right? The moment that you are willing to be more loving, more intentional about experiencing and expressing love, the higher your chances are of witnessing victory over confusion, disagreement, disappointment, misalignment, and more outcomes that could be grossly undesirable, right? I believe, I reckon that it takes courage to ask, to search into, to unpack. You have to be teachable. You need to be willing to learn. You need to be more understanding. You need to be more empathetic. You need to be more sympathetic. You need to be more selfless. That actually sums it up, right? To be understood is just as significant as being understanding, right? I just thought of this hymn that we used to sing in high school. I think it's called Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. Make me a channel of your peace. Right? There's a part, I thought about that hymn because there's a part that says, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Right? There's always it's a two-way street. Right? For people to understand each other, right? Messages are being transmitted from one person to another and back. That decoding, uncoding, the encoding of messages. And yeah, you got to be willing. You got to be willing to meet the person halfway. You got to be willing to actually hear them out and listen, and understand and pay attention to what they're saying, what they're expressing, what they hope to see materialize, what they desire. You have to be willing, right, to be understood as to understand. Yeah, because then when communication is effective, people understand each other. Someone has said something, someone has heard it or received it, they've processed it, and they respond to it, and probably there's going to be feedback as well, right? So even with love, even in relationships, something can be received well or not, just depending on the quality of that communication, the effectiveness of that communication, right? And so that's the E in the love. Exercise willingness to learn. You have to be teachable. Be open to correction because you may get it wrong, where you just don't understand why they don't like the gift that you got them when their primary love language is quality time. They don't care about your gift. Okay, maybe they do, but they're not too concerned about it because what they want, what they desire is just spending time with you. That's all I wanted, just to spend time with you. No matter how many bouquets of flowers you get me, how many bars of chocolate you get me, no matter what you do for me, I just want to spend time with you. That's an example, right? But you need to be willing to learn that. You need to be open to learning, open to listening, paying attention to the cues, right? Yeah, I say that because you really may actually love someone incorrectly. Yeah, or maybe not incorrectly. That sounds harsh. Because I mean, how can I love improperly? But I'm loving you, right? I think you miss out on fulfillment, right? You miss out on contentment or satisfaction, if I can put it like that. And yeah, so just really think about that. That willingness to listen, that willingness to learn and be teachable. Imagine the despair, right, on a man's face when he finds that the chocolates that he's been giving his wife for years, right, are actually rotting in a cupboard somewhere in the house, all because she just doesn't actually like the chocolate. She just doesn't actually like chocolate as a gift. But he didn't know. He didn't ask. He didn't take time to learn, or let alone even be teachable. Because maybe she did say that, hey, I don't like chocolate, right? So it gets awkward, and I feel like you can save yourself awkward situations and despair when you're willing to learn, when you're more teachable in relationships, especially if someone is trying to teach you their love language. All right, take note as I start rounding up that Dr. Chapman's love languages, right, are based on his research and his developed theory, right, or hypothesis or ideology, construct, framework, whatever word you can add to that as well, right? They are not a law or binding force to how we should love. Take it as a guide. It's a starting point for you to learn how to be more present in someone's life, to learn how to be more understanding, to learn how to be to just show up better in that relationship, to participate better in that relationship. Because I think your presence is acknowledged when you're understood, or when someone understands what you're doing in that relationship, what you're fulfilling in that relationship, right? Yeah, take it with a pinch of salt. Take it with a pinch of salt. I think God provides the law and binding constructs or frameworks to loving each other, firstly, because it's a commandment, but I think also just how we should love. There are a few passages of scriptures in how we can love each other, as we see Jesus exemplifying it, but also as we see text actually commanding it or dictating it. All right. Yeah, I think of my test, right? I've done the love languages test several times over the past few years since I started doing it, when I discovered it. And according to recent tests, right, words of affirmation and quality time are my top two love languages. They fluctuate, and so if you want to love on me, right? Look at me just putting it out there. If you want to love on me, spend time with me, make time for me, and affirm me. It may be influenced by insecurities. It may be influenced by things I've experienced growing up. Look at me getting vulnerable. It may be what has been shaped by my experiences growing up, right? Or just leading up to who I am today. But yeah, that's what stands. I've done the test, and time again, those are the top two. You are very welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Don't fight what the Holy Spirit is inspiring you to do. You're very welcome to send me gifts as well, right? That's the third love language. It's usually also just like the third or fourth. It fluctuates depending on who they're coming from. All right, I really appreciate hugs and just that, especially a loving embrace. Right? Otherwise, don't touch me. So physical touch also fluctuates between 4 and 5. Acts of service also 4 and 5, up there, down there rather. So that's just me. I did say on this podcast that, yeah, I would open up about myself, and you'll learn about me as I speak about love, right? So that's that on that for me. Gifts are welcome. Don't just touch me, G. And feel free to serve me, to do what you can to relieve me of stress or despair or struggles. It will be very much appreciated, though it's not as important to me, because I have tendencies of being like a maverick, where I can did it on my own. Yeah, it's probably not that healthy. I'm learning to ask for help. I'm learning to delegate. I'm learning to seek support. So it's work in progress. But don't fight what the Holy Spirit is inspiring you to do. Otherwise, words of affirmation. and quality time, top tier. Let's do stuff together. Let's go places together. Let's experience things together. You'll find a very content and loved man in me. Yeah. Also, this doesn't need to be romantic. People, get your minds out the gutter. When I talk about relationships on this podcast, it's very expensive, right? Anyone, as long as you relate to another human being, you have a relationship. Relationship. So you can relate to a friend, brother, sister, mother, uncle, workmate, stranger. You can relate to them, right? Then it becomes perhaps a professional relationship, an acquaintance, right? Whatever it is. So yeah, be aware, right? One thing to note, on top of the many things I've said, I hope you've been writing notes. Be careful not to project onto others what you'd want to experience. Remember when I said when we're looking at affection, you can either experience it or express it, right? You can either receive it or you can give it, right? Be careful not to project onto others what you'd want to experience. So it becomes a balancing act, right? Recall that my top two love languages are quality time and words of affirmation. So that's how I feel most loved. What I'm inclined to do, whether I think about it or not, is to give off that. So you may require or desire gift giving and acts of service. But if they're on my bottom, I may not show up in your life in doing that for you. So you may feel unfulfilled. Whereas I'm saying, hey, I love you because I'm spending time with you and I'm affirming you. Just from my purview of it being the primary love languages. So I project it. So it becomes a thing of, you may have instances where what you give and what you receive is not the same, where you got to give something different, whereas you're more likely, you favor receiving something else. So as I said, I appreciate receiving words of affirmation as well as experiencing quality time with my loved ones. But I may not be required to give that or express love in those two ways because the other person requires something different. So that's where you got to be willing to learn. That's where you got to be willing to unlearn. That's where you got to be teachable, where someone teaches you, right, to serve them, where someone teaches you to pick out the right gift that they will appreciate and treasure. Do you see where I'm going? That's another lesson. I've kind of gone back to an L there because we take L's on this podcast, right? Don't be careful not to project. Be careful not to project. Yeah. Because I've definitely glitched, guys. Like just system crashing where I just didn't understand why I felt like there was no reciprocation, why I felt like they were not receiving what I thought guys, if I'm out here, I'm thinking I'm the best friend in the world. If you got me in your life, you are blessed. Right? But it was just not, the combos were not connecting. It just didn't make sense. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? What am I saying wrong? Then I realized that no, they aren't experiencing that love that I am expressing. Again, that mirror, things are being mirrored and probably not being mirrored effectively, or as you may think, they're not being mirrored effectively. Right? So, yeah, don't ignore that. Don't overlook that. Because if I ignore, right, or if I ignore that you are going to be unfulfilled with your experience of love from me, I'm not honoring you. I'm not loving you effectively. And so that's just it. I think it's important for us to get it right. So I'll leave you to figure it out. I'll leave you to learn about it. I'll leave you to study, inquire, research, and yeah, remind yourself of the useful, right, and insightful theory of love languages. Learn more about this framework. Be willing to learn and unlearn as well, right, as you strive to communicate more effectively in your relationships. Communicating how you want to be loved, communicating how you express love. right? And I think this also relates to you as well, how you love yourself. I'm not, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not really talking about the self-love thing. I'm just thinking of, as you perceive it, as you process things, just are you understanding how you see yourself in the light of expressing affection, how you experience affection? I think that's what I'm saying. Because the whole self-love thing is tricky. But that's not what we're talking about today. So yeah, those are my 2 cents that have spanned these many minutes, right? Thank you for tuning into episode 10 of Love on a Podcast. Episode 11 is loading. That's going to come next Monday. Woo! Guys, 11 out of 15 for the first season. So I'm excited about finishing this thing. It's been hard. It's been a lot. But I'm so grateful and so fulfilled in knowing that people are tuning in, people are learning, people are growing, people are receiving this very, very well. So stay tuned for more goodness. Stay tuned for more love on a podcast. And as always, I implore you, I encourage you, I commission you, as I've been commissioned by the Lord, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love on a Podcast.